First of all, let me tell you thank you and congratulations on finding your way to watch this video. I think that it will unlock the potential of this tool that's been created that I believe is second to none and is the best tool out there for horse race handicapping. Do you really spend way too much time handicapping? Do you want just a program that's going to give you suggested plays with minimal effort like a tip sheet? We've got that. Do you want to put a little bit more time behind your handicapping, solve that and try to solve that puzzle that is each individual race scenario? We've got the ability to do that too very efficiently. Do you want to break out a calculator, color pens and pencils before you start your handicapping today and circle things from one horse to the next? We'll do that coloring for you and the calculations will be done automatically. Do you either want to or do you actually utilize track bias or trip note informations? And do you spend a ton of time triangulating that data and ensuring you're not missing a horse that's running today that maybe ran against or with a bias in one of their previous outs? Do you have a trip note on a horse and it's not triangulating well with the roster of horses on that card? Is there a lot of manual effort required for you to utilize these two? Do you want a mechanical way to really identify if a track bias existed? Or at least a mechanical way that you can use to help confirm what you thought your eyes saw? Oftentimes you'll think that there was a bias, early pace bias or late pace bias, when just the best horses that day had that same running style. And the specs have the ability to run through some algorithms and let you know what it believed the ideal weighting early to late would have been that day to confirm whether or not there truly was a bias. Do you know what ABC ticket methodology is? Would you like to use it but currently don't? Or maybe you currently do use kind of the basic ABC methodology, but we've got 4 or 5 different flavors to offer you that will help minimize your ticket costs or optimize your opinions. What about pedigree information? Do you spend a ton of time looking up mare and sibling information on whatever tool you use? Or maybe you don't do that because you're not sure how. We have a pretty slick, semi-automated way. It's a little manual. I mean, it's a little more time-consuming than manual from a PC computer perspective, but it's a pretty slick tool to give you that information on first and second time starters, so you know which ones were by or out of a mare that did well on the track, or maybe that has thrown some runners that did well as well. All of these things are addressed and they're presented in a way that is really second to none. The data is the data. We get the data, we use Briz data for most of this stuff, and it is what it is. We've got ways that we're spinning the data differently. We're using the data that they give us differently than most people, and it's being pushed to you. The presentation is what makes the specs really valuable and really unique. This is what's going to save you time. It's going to improve your game, and it's going to introduce you to things maybe you hadn't considered in your handicapping. So the specs provide this proposed ABC selection. So it'll give you a ranking of the horses. It'll suggest whether or not you should use them as A's, B's, and C's. It addresses maybe a lower ranked horse that has a pace advantage, or maybe a lower ranked horse that's a first or second time starter that has other things going for it other than how it's done in the afternoons racing. Obviously first time starters, we have no racing data on them, so we have to have a way to look at those horses and consider them. We also use that same method for second time starters, and then we'll propose whether or not you should use these promising looking first and second time starters as A's or B's, even if they're not ranked highly in the algorithm. We have those tools that really seamlessly provide your track bias and trip notes tracking. It's going to tell you whether a horse was with or against a bias in its last 3 starts. It's going to tell you whether there was a trip note that was taken on the horse. And again, we have that automated way to identify if a bias existed and how significant it was. We have a semi-automated way that you can go and get the results, scratches, and changes. There's a little bit of user involvement to go and copy and paste some data from Equibase. But once you get that data in, it will pull the scratches, changes, results out of that information and utilize it to highlight where the winners were and to remove scratched horses, to modify the track condition or changes in surfaces, distance, and jockeys. We have that tool that will gather pedigree information for all first and second time starters, We'll also go and look at the stakes races, and we'll pull that information if you think that that's valuable for you. First and second time starter, I won't handicap without getting the pedigree information. Stakes races, especially if it's older horses, I can probably live without it. Normally at that point the horse is standing on its own merits and not on what its mom and siblings had done. But sometimes it's cool to know this horse is a have to arrogate, right? If your friends don't know that, you're going to look pretty smart letting them know when you're sitting at the off track and this horse goes on to win the race. And then we have that tool that will formulate your multi-race tickets. Give your A's, B's, and C's are used to formulate your doubles, pick 3s, pick 4s, pick 5s, and pick 6s. And gives you multiple choices on how much money you want to spend based on your selection criteria. And then at the end of the day, once you run all the results through, it will highlight and show you exactly what each of the winners had that you didn't select as an A or B. What were the characteristics that they had going for them? It'll present it in a way where you can learn from your mistakes and learn on maybe where you need to tweak your handicapping. What are you not considering as much as you should? Maybe it's a horse that really likes a certain jockey. I've seen that time or two where most of the races that I missed were horses that had demonstrated a very, very good record with a specific jockey, and they're changing back to that jockey, and I missed it, right? It didn't stand out to me enough. So things like that where you can adjust your play is what this will do for you. So if your goal is to reduce the time you spend handicapping, the specs will accomplish that with zero doubt. If your goal is that you want a tool that's just going to tell you what horses are strong contenders and how strong they are, it'll provide you that too. It'll provide you a pseudo tip sheet. Is your goal to improve your game, to embrace all the tools that's going to be provided by the specs? The specs will do it with flying colors. It will introduce you to things that you potentially hadn't even thought about from your handicapping. In most cases, it's going to do both. It's going to reduce the time you spend. It's going to provide you those additional tools. It'll put a little bug in your ear on have you considered doing this or that in your handicapping. It's going to rank those horses by that proprietary algorithm. It's going to present pace scenarios like you haven't seen it presented before. And it has that conditional formatting where you can throw away your colored pens and pencils because it's going to be colored for you. The same stuff that you're highlighting, circling, using different colors for is going to be presented in a way that's just incredibly clean, crisp, easy to use. Once you learn how to read it, your handicapping time will be at least cut in half, if not 20% of the time spent today will be what you spend handicapping. There's a little bit of investment in the initial setup to get the specs ready to use, but it's mostly computer time, no heavy lifting, not a lot of thought process required, just some computer time. If this excites you, read on. There's other videos to kind of walk you through how to set up the specs and use them. And as you go through there and see how easy it is and hear those conversations, hopefully it sparks your interest. We'll also have some later on where we go into the specific details on handicapping with the specs. We'll have some handicapping sessions where I'll handicap a race or two and walk you through what I look at and what the specs is presenting. And I think you'll find that very informative even if you don't become a customer of the specs. Hopefully this gets you excited, and we'll talk to you later.